All right, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about nucleic acids, and you've definitely heard of these before, and you can see this picture right here. You recognize that. This says, what is an example of a nucleic acid? Well, you know that this is DNA, right? So DNA, oops, wrong way, must be one of our examples. Okay, so DNA, and actually what we'll see here is the Na of nucleic acids is the Na of DNA. And actually, let's write out the whole word here. So we have deoxyribo, which is just part of the DNA, which is the sugar, nucleic acid. You'll see what I mean by the sugar later. Okay. So that is one example, right? Another example of a nucleic acid is RNA, and RNA is the same thing as DNA. It's except a little different, and basically it's this part. So without the deoxyribose, it's just ribonucleic acid. Oh, I forgot to do this. So DNA, if we're going to outline or underline all three, we have DN, deoxyribonucleic acid. That's where the D and A comes from. Okay, so RNA is just ribonucleic acid. Okay, all right. So we have this classic DNA structure. It's called a double helix. You should know double helix. You've probably heard that before. Um, and it doesn't always it doesn't actually look just like that. It's really in its 3D structure is more complex than that, and that's because it's made up of not just like string. This kind of looks just like strings and like little things connecting in the middle. It's made up of um, monomers called nucleotides, like single parts. Monomers, just the parts that it's made of, are called nucleotides. Okay, so this is an important word. And a nucleotide looks like this. Um, so I want you to draw this. Okay, so there's three parts. We have the pentose sugar. Okay, so pentose meaning it is five-sided. We have a phosphate group up here attached to this corner. Make sure you are drawing these correctly. And then in this opposite corner right here from that side is what we call a nitrogenous base. It's nitrogenous just because it has nitrogen in it. Okay. And you've probably learned about DNA before. The base DNA has four different letters, right? And so those are the bases, and they can be A, which is adenine, T, which is thymine, G, which is guanine, and C, which is cytosine. So new DNA has four letters: A, T's, G's, and C's. And we'll kind of go over that stuff later. We're not really going to talk about it in too much detail now. I just want to go over the structure and a little bit of the functions. Okay. So how does this structure, this nucleotide right here, right? This is a nucleotide. How does it get to look like this? Well, the 3D structure of DNA really is kind of more like this. So we're going to kind of break this down in the next slide here and kind of figure out how this nucleotide ends up looking like this. Okay. So classic structure of DNA right here is the double helix. We see it's really is just a twisted ladder. So on a ladder, we have the rails, okay, the upright parts that I'm highlighting here. And that is the blue strand. And the other rail would be the red strand, right? And in between them, we have these things, which are actually going to be the bases, and they go across from the different strands. And these are the rungs of the ladder, okay? So we have rails and rungs of the ladder. Now, if we go back and think about our nucleotide, how does that nucleotide, which is that right here, we have the base, we have the sugar, we have the sugar, we have the phosphate, and we have the base. So how does that become this? Well, this is a nucleotide. And so if you look in this picture here, I want you to try to figure out, can you identify or circle a single nucleotide? Right, where is a single nucleotide? It doesn't look exactly the same as this nucleotide I drew, but they are all here. So here is a nucleotide, right? Okay. And then this nucleotide on this blue strand, so you see that all of this is blue right here. Oops. It's this nucleotide is attached to this nucleotide. And then this nucleotide is attached to this nucleotide, and this one is attached to this nucleotide, okay? So that would be 4 nucleotides on this side. That means we have 4 nucleotides on the other side. And so you'll see here that the blue strand is the phosphate and the sugar of one nucleotide, and here is the base. So the phosphate and the sugar, and then the phosphate and the sugar of the next one, and the phosphate and the sugar of the next one, the phosphate and the sugar of the next one, those make up the rungs of the ladder, right? The blue and the red strands in this thing over here, okay? And the bases, these are the things that connect the 2 strands together. So we have a base here, and then it is connected to the base of this nucleotide on the other side, okay? And then on this other side, I have red, this is a bad choice here, but we have a phosphate and a sugar, a phosphate and a sugar, a phosphate and a sugar, a phosphate and a sugar. Remember, these are more nucleotides. Oh, sorry, this is really messy. But so we have 4 more nucleotides, and the phosphate and the sugars make up the red strand, the rung of the ladder, and then the base connects in the middle, and those make up the rails, okay? So hopefully we got that. I'm going to kind of break this down even farther just to make it a little more simple. So let's say, can you see how this little elbow piece is a nucleotide? So this is going to be our phosphate, our sugar, and our base, okay? So we're going to connect it to another one. No. We're going to connect it to another one right here. Phosphate, sugar, base. We're going to connect it to another one. I really mean to touch it, but I'm not touching it, so you can kind of see that they're individual nucleotides. So phosphate, sugar, base. So here we have 3 nucleotides on one side. I wish I could change the color. No, okay. So this is our one-sided strand, right? This is a strand on one side, and on the other side, we could do another thing. We could do the other ones, okay? So here we have a phosphate, a sugar, and a base, and these connect in the middle, right? And then we could add another one right here. Phosphate, sugar, base. These connect in the middle. These are the rungs, and this is the rail, and these are the rungs, right? So let's draw one last one. Phosphate, sugar, base. Remember, this should be connected right there, and then they connect in the middle. So that is how our nucleotides, okay, become a 3D ladder that then twists and becomes our DNA molecule. I hope you can see how we put all of that together there. Okay, I know that was kind of complicated. So what I want you to do is draw this one right here, okay? And I want you to know how that equals this, right? So you should know that what parts are the rails and what parts are the rungs, right? So the phosphates and the sugars, those are the rungs of the nope. Those are the rails of the ladder. And then the bases make up the rungs of the ladder. Okay, you should know how that kind of goes together. All right. I know that was quick, but hopefully you got that. Ask me questions if you need to, okay? All right, some functions. You've probably heard of DNA as having a couple main things, like just some catchphrases, like it makes you who you are, or it's the blueprints to the cell, or it's genetic information, and all those things are true. But what I want you to know specifically is how it does all these things, how it makes you who you are, and how it's the blueprints of the cell. Here, I want you to write this part down specifically. It provides the instructions for making the proteins in your body. Proteins do so many things in your body. They are the things that make all the things in your cell. They make up your cells. among other things too that we've gone over, all of the macromolecules. But proteins are really important in your body, and they are going to kind of be the key to your whole self. Okay, so we'll go over this part later, how this works. But DNA codes for RNA, which then makes protein. So when you have genes, they eventually get turned into protein. So that is what the real function of DNA is. Okay. All right. So that's it for now. We're going to get into DNA more later and how genes turn into proteins. But for now, I just want you to focus on the structure and that basic function of DNA. Okay. Thanks, guys.